It was an accident, my mother lied as I lay with broken bones. Then the police played the recording that destroyed our family and sent my brother to prison. I am Ethan, and I am 25 years old. Exactly 6 months ago, my life was violently shattered and then entirely rebuilt on the cold, unforgiving concrete of a hospital emergency stairwell. I was lying there at the bottom of the landing, gasping for air. Every single breath felt like a jagged, rusty knife twisting directly into my chest cavity. I could taste the sharp metallic flavor of copper pooling behind my teeth. My vision was swimming in dizzying dark circles, and my right arm was bent at a completely unnatural, horrifying angle. Above me, standing on the top landing like a conquering king looking over a battlefield, was my 29-year-old brother, Liam. He didn't look panicked. He didn't look remotely remorseful. He looked incredibly satisfied. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he casually reached up and dusted off the lapels of his expensive designer jacket, the exact same jacket my parents had bought him for his birthday using money they claimed they didn't have when I begged for help with my college tuition. "Aren't you perfect, Ethan?" Liam sneered, his dark, empty eyes staring down at me. "Always making everyone else look bad with your daily hospital visits and your pathetic little homemade care packages. You really think you can just swoop in and steal what is rightfully mine?" I tried to push myself up using my good arm, but the sheer force of the pain made my vision go entirely black. "Liam," I choked out, my voice sounding weak and pathetic. "Grandma is waiting for us. You need to help me up. Everything is about you, Ethan. It always has been," he spat, taking one deliberate step down toward me. "You are nothing but a roadblock." That was when his Oscar-worthy performance began. Liam reached into his tailored pocket, pulled out his smartphone, and completely changed his entire demeanor in a fraction of a second. The arrogant predator vanished, replaced by a frantic, innocent victim. He dialed a number, his hands shaking with artificial terror. "Mom, Dad, come quick to stairwell C." Liam cried into the phone, his voice cracking with manufactured panic and fake tears. Ethan fell down the stairs. I tried to grab his shirt, I tried to catch him, but I couldn't reach him. He just slipped. "Please hurry, there is so much blood." Less than a minute later, the heavy metal fire doors on the bottom landing flew open with a deafening crash. My mother and father burst into the stairwell. For a brief, incredibly foolish second, a wave of relief washed over me. My parents were here. They would call a doctor. They would help me. I was so incredibly wrong. My mother didn't even glance at the blood pooling near my head. She didn't look at my twisted arm or my bruised face. She sprinted directly past me, her expensive heels clicking sharply on the concrete, and threw herself at Liam. She wrapped her arms around him tightly, pulling his head to her shoulder. "Oh my God, Liam, my sweet boy, you poor thing," she cried, kissing his cheek repeatedly as if he were the one bleeding on the floor. "You must have been so incredibly scared watching your brother fall like that. It is okay, sweetie. You are safe, Mom is here. Don't look at it, it will just traumatize you more." My father walked slowly down the steps. He stopped right next to my head. He didn't kneel down to check my pulse. He just stood there, towering over me, glaring down with an expression of pure, unadulterated disappointment. "Ethan, what in the world were you thinking?" My father scolded, his tone laced with absolute disgust. "Running in a stairwell at your age? You know your brother has high blood pressure. You could have given him a severe panic attack with this reckless stunt. You are always causing unnecessary drama." I forced my eyes open, staring at his expensive leather shoes. "I didn't fall," I whispered, the pain making my voice raspy and broken. "I didn't run, Liam." He pushed me. He shoved me with both hands. Don't you dare." Liam interrupted instantly, burying his face deeper into our mother's shoulder, fake tears streaming down his face. "I tried to save you, Ethan. I almost fell down the stairs myself trying to grab your jacket. How can you lie about this? Why do you always try to make me the bad guy?" My mother's face hardened into a mask of pure venomous fury. "Stop it right now, Ethan. Just shut your mouth. Your brother is traumatized enough without you making up malicious, jealous stories to ruin his reputation. You have always been clumsy and now you are just being vindictive." Before I could even attempt to defend myself, the top stairwell door burst open again. A rapid response medical team rushed in, led by a tall, imposing woman in dark blue scrubs. Her name tag read Time Sarah, head trauma nurse. She took one look at the scene and immediately went into professional mode. "What exactly happened here?" Sarah demanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She completely ignored my parents and dropped to her knees beside me, gently stabilizing my neck. "Our son had a clumsy accident," my father said smoothly, stepping directly in front of Liam to shield him from the nurse's view. "He was running up the stairs, completely ignored the wet floor sign, and lost his footing. His older brother bravely tried to catch him, but missed." Nurse Sarah didn't look up at my father. Her experienced eyes darted to the angle of my fall, the massive distance between the landing and my body, the position of my limbs, and then slowly up to the top landing where Liam stood perfectly unharmed. She was a veteran of the emergency room. She knew exactly what a clumsy slip looked like, and she knew exactly what an intentional, forceful assault looked like. "Step back, sir," Sarah ordered, her voice leaving absolutely zero room for negotiation. "Do not crowd my patient. We need to stabilize his cervical spine immediately." As the EMTs expertly strapped me to a rigid backboard, a younger nurse hurried into the stairwell holding a glowing hospital tablet. She looked visibly panicked. "Nurse Sarah, you need to see this immediately. Hospital security just flagged the feed from this sector." "Not now," my mother snapped aggressively, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "We are dealing with a private family matter. In fact, we will be taking Ethan to a private clinic in our network. I do not want him treated at this public facility. Have your people help him out to our car." Sarah completely ignored my mother. She took the tablet, her eyes scanning the screen for 10 seconds. I watched her jaw clench so hard a muscle ticked in her cheek. The air in the stairwell seemed to instantly drop 10 degrees. She handed the tablet back and pulled out her shoulder radio. "Security, this is Sarah. Initiate a full lockdown on stairwell C and secure the perimeter immediately. I need the raw camera footage from the last 15 minutes sent directly to the police liaison's office," she said calmly, her eyes never leaving my parents. My father's face went completely pale, all his previous arrogance draining away. "What footage? I demand you release my son to us right now. I will have my lawyer sue you for unlawful detainment." Sarah stood up to her full height and looked my father dead in the eye. "Sir, every single stairwell in this hospital is monitored 24/7 by high-definition cameras. What I just witnessed on that security feed is not a clumsy accident. It is felony assault. This is no longer a family matter, and absolutely nobody is leaving this building until law enforcement arrives." I saw Liam physically recoil against the wall. His perfect, smug facade began to violently crack, but the dark truth was, this brutal push was not an isolated incident. To understand how my own family could stand there, watch me bleed, and actively side with my attacker, you have to understand the deeply toxic foundation my entire life was built upon. Growing up, there were two entirely distinct realities in our household. There was Liam's world, a world of endless privilege and zero consequences. And then there was my world, a world of constant labor, invisible sacrifices, and perpetual blame. Liam was the undeniable golden child. When he turned 16, my parents dipped into their retirement to buy him a brand new Audi. 2 days later, he backed it into a brick mailbox. Instead of punishing him, my father handed me a bucket of soapy water and told me to buff out the scratches, blaming me for distracting Liam while he was driving. When I turned 16, I got a firm handshake and a job application for a local hardware store to build character. When it came time for college, I discovered my parents had completely drained the educational fund my grandparents had set up for me. They casually admitted they used the $95,000 to pay for Liam's lavish destination wedding in the Bahamas, a marriage that inevitably ended in a messy divorce just 8 months later. I was left to take out crippling student loans and work grueling night shifts just to survive. But there was one person who saw straight through their smoke and mirrors: Grandma Eleanor. Eleanor was my father's mother, a fiercely independent woman who built a highly lucrative real estate portfolio from scratch. She did not tolerate manipulation, and she absolutely despised Liam's entitlement. A year ago, Grandma Eleanor required high-risk open-heart surgery, needing round-the-clock intensive care for her 6-month recovery. My parents instantly bailed. My father claimed his executive job was too demanding, my mother claimed she had too many charity galas. Liam dramatically sighed, said hospitals depressed his creative energy, and booked a 3-week vacation to Cabo. So I stepped up. I broke my apartment lease and moved my entire life into Eleanor's historic mansion. For 6 months, I cooked her specific dietary meals, managed her complex medications, bathed her when she was too weak to stand, and worked my remote job late into the night. We bonded deeply. She watched me meticulously balance my meager salary to pay my loans while helping her manage her multi-million-dollar estate paperwork. 3 months ago, Liam came over unannounced. I was in the kitchen when I heard a violent crash from Eleanor's private home office. I ran in to find Liam standing aggressively over a forcibly opened filing cabinet, his face purple with rage, tightly gripping a thick legal document. It was a certified copy of Grandma Eleanor's updated will and living trust. "What the hell is this, Ethan?" Liam screamed, shoving me hard against a bookshelf. "She is leaving the historic property, the stock portfolio, the liquid assets, everything to you. You manipulated a sick old woman. That money belongs to me. It is my birthright." Suddenly, Grandma Eleanor appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on her wooden cane. "Put my private papers down and get out of my house this instant," she commanded, her voice shaking the walls. "Ethan didn't manipulate anything. I changed my will because he is the only person in this family with an ounce of integrity. If you ever lay a hand on your brother again, I will make sure you don't get a single dime from your father's estate either." Liam dropped the papers, glaring at me with pure, Unadulterated hatred. "This is not over, Ethan," he hissed. That was the exact moment my life became a daily terrifying hazard. Over the next few months, strange, dangerous accidents started happening whenever my family was around. At a family BBQ, Liam tripped and shoved me off a concrete patio into a thorny rosebush. At the grocery store, a heavy wooden pallet mysteriously toppled over exactly where I was standing. At the hospital 3 weeks ago, Liam's foot hooked my ankle near a water fountain, sending me smashing my chin into the porcelain, requiring 6 stitches. My parents always laughed it off, completely dismissing my claims and labeling me an uncoordinated liability. And then came today, the hospital stairwell. The moment he decided small accidents weren't enough to remove the obstacle to his wealth. Update 1. The emergency room was a chaotic, dizzying blur of harsh lights and frantic shouting. I was lying flat on a stiff gurney in Trauma Bay 3, my chest tightly wrapped in thick bandages. The X-rays had just confirmed the brutal reality: 3 severely broken ribs, a hairline fracture in my collarbone, and a shattered wrist. Through the thin blue privacy curtain, I could clearly hear the vicious argument in the hallway. My parents were absolutely furious. "This is completely outrageous." Yeah. My father yelled, slamming his heavy hand against a metal medical cart. "I am a respected corporate executive. We are not allowing our son to be locked in a room and interrogated like a common street thug. I demand you process the discharge papers for Ethan immediately. Your son pushed his brother down a concrete flight of stairs with enough force to break bones," Nurse Sarah replied, her voice dangerously calm and unyielding. "The local police department has already been dispatched. We are treating this as a crime scene." The privacy curtain was yanked back abruptly. Dr. Eris, the senior attending trauma surgeon, stepped firmly into my bay, followed closely by Nurse Sarah. They ignored the screaming match outside. "Ethan," Dr. Eris said, his expression incredibly grim, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you in fear for your life outside of this building?" I stared down at my heavily bruised hands, the suffocating weight of my family's ultimate betrayal pressing down on my broken chest. "I live with my grandmother right now," I murmured, my voice shaking. Nurse Sarah stepped forward, holding her glowing tablet. "While you were down in radiology, our risk management team pulled your medical history. We noticed a very distinct, highly disturbing pattern. We went back and reviewed the archived security footage from your previous visits to this hospital with your grandmother." My heart began to hammer violently against my broken ribs. 3 weeks ago, you required 6 stitches by the water fountain. 2 months before that, a severely sprained ankle in the parking garage. Last month, a mild concussion near the cafeteria. We pulled the high-definition archival tape for every single one of those incidents. The silence in the trauma bay was deafening. "What did you see?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. "We saw your brother," Dr. Eris said firmly, his voice filled with righteous anger. "We saw him intentionally stick his foot out at the fountain. We saw him aggressively shove you from behind in the parking garage. We have exactly 6 documented, crystal clear recorded accidents on hospital property. In every single one, Liam is the aggressor, and your parents are standing right there watching it happen in real time, actively looking the other way." The remaining breath completely left my lungs. I knew they enabled Liam, but to hear a medical professional confirm they actively watched him systematically abuse me and covered it up, it broke something fundamental deep inside my soul. I was nothing but acceptable collateral damage in their desperate mission to protect their golden child. The curtain flew open with violent force. My father stormed in, his face bright red, Liam cowering cowardly behind his broad shoulders. "We are leaving right now," my father barked, pointing an aggressive finger at Dr. Eris. "I am calling my lawyer. You are facing a massive medical malpractice lawsuit." "You are not in charge here, sir," Dr. Eris stated, towering over my father with quiet authority. "Ethan is an adult. As mandated reporters, this violent cycle of abuse stops today." My mother aggressively pushed past my father, rushing to my bedside. She grabbed my uninjured left hand, digging her manicured nails painfully into my skin. Her eyes were wide and pleading, but a vicious threat lingered right beneath her sweet tone. "Ethan, please listen to me," she whispered frantically. "Tell them it was a huge mistake. Tell them you tripped on your shoelaces. If they arrest Liam, it will ruin his life. He'll lose everything. You know he just gets a little hot-headed. Please, for the sake of our family, be the bigger person." I looked deep into the eyes of the woman who birthed me, actively begging me to swallow my trauma and ignore my shattered bones just to keep her favorite son out of a jail cell. For 25 years, I had absorbed the pain to keep their twisted version of peace. A fire ignited deep in my chest, burning away decades of fear and submission. I yanked my hand violently out of her grasp. "No," I said, my voice ringing out clear and unwavering. My mother gasped loudly, stepping back as if I had physically struck her. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "I am completely done," I said, looking directly into my father's shocked eyes. "I am done being your designated punching bag. He didn't slip. He actively tried to kill me so he could steal Grandma's inheritance. I turned to Nurse Sarah. Call the police. Give them everything you have. I want to press full criminal charges. You little ungrateful bastard. Liam snarled, losing his victim facade instantly. He lunged forward with his fists raised, but before he could take 2 steps, Dr. Eris shoved him incredibly hard against the metal doorframe. A heavy-set hospital security guard stepped into the room, placing his hand threateningly on his utility belt, forcing Liam back into the hallway. 10 minutes later, Detective Hayes confidently walked into Trauma Bay 3. She was a seasoned, tough-as-nails investigator. After clearing my toxic family into an isolated holding area, she sat beside my bed. I told her absolutely everything: the push, the cruel words, the fake phone call, the inheritance dispute, and the escalating dangerous accidents. Hayes took meticulous notes but looked at me with a neutral expression. Inheritance disputes are common motives, she noted quietly. But I have to be honest, Ethan. Proving criminal intent in a fall is notoriously difficult. A good defense attorney will argue it was a sibling scuffle. Getting a DA to bite on premeditated attempted murder is a massive legal leap. As if on exact cue, a sharp-dressed man wearing a custom Italian suit strode aggressively into my bay. It was Sterling, a notoriously ruthless corporate defense lawyer my father kept on permanent retainer. Detective Hayes, Sterling said smoothly, oozing fake charm. I formally represent Liam and his parents. We are demanding Liam be released immediately. There is zero credible physical evidence of a crime here. Only the rambling accusations of an unhinged sibling with a highly documented history of severe mental instability. I felt my heart drop like a stone. Mental instability. Sterling turned his predatory gaze directly to me. My client's brother has been under immense, crushing stress acting as a full-time caregiver for an elderly dementia patient. We are fully prepared to bring in highly paid medical experts to testify he is suffering from severe paranoia, delusions, and caregiver burnout. He lunged aggressively at my client in a manic state on that stairwell, lost his footing, and fell. Liam heroically tried to catch him, but failed. This is a tragic accident, not a crime. Hayes crossed her arms. We have high-definition security footage of the explicit push, Mr. Sterling. Sterling smiled, a cold reptilian stretch of the lips. Video without audio is entirely subjective, detective. It will simply show a chaotic struggle. If you arrest my client on this incredibly flimsy evidence, I will personally file a massive multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit against this hospital, your precinct, and this young man. The room grew incredibly tense. My parents had brought in the absolute heaviest artillery to crush me into silence. Just as Hayes was about to sharply respond, a young man wearing a hospital IT uniform jogged urgently into the room. It was Noah, the lead security technician. He looked out of breath, gripping a small silver USB drive triumphantly. "Excuse me, detective," Noah interrupted, completely ignoring the glaring million-dollar lawyer. "Nurse Sarah asked me to pull the raw data files from the stairwell C camera. It was a code red priority." "We already have the video file, son," Hayes said gently. "Yes, ma'am, I know," Noah replied rapidly, plugging the USB drive into Sarah's tablet on the desk. "But you see, stairwell C is an old emergency exit. Last month, administration upgraded the entire security system to include high-definition environmental audio recording to strictly monitor for fire alarms. I just spent the last 20 minutes running the raw file through our audio extraction software to isolate the voices from the background echo." Lawyer Sterling's arrogant smile instantly vanished. He took a quick step forward. "I object to this entirely. This is an illegal wiretap in a private facility. A public hospital stairwell has absolutely zero reasonable expectation of privacy, counselor," Hayes snapped back fiercely. "Play the audio, Noah, now." Noah tapped the screen. The tiny electronic hiss of the concrete stairwell filled the silent trauma bay. And then, clear as absolute day, Liam's voice echoed loudly from the small speakers. But it wasn't the conversation we had right before the push. It was a phone call he had made exactly 10 minutes prior, pacing the top landing alone while waiting for me to walk up the stairs. "I don't care what Dad says," Liam's recorded voice snarled aggressively, dripping with venom. "I am not letting that little rat take the house. It's prime historic real estate. If the old bat dies and he gets control of the trust, I am totally screwed. No, listen to me. One more accident should do it permanently. I'm going to push him down the concrete flight in stairwell C. It's a completely blind corner. I'll just say, he tripped, and I tried to catch him. With his injuries, he will either give up the claim out of fear or be too brain damaged to fight me in probate court. I'm taking care of the obstacle right now. Just have the lawyer ready." The audio clicked off. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy, and profound. The air was completely sucked out of the room. Lawyer Sterling stared blankly at the tablet, his face completely drained of all color, looking like he had just seen a ghost. He slowly reached down and closed the golden clasps of his expensive leather briefcase with a quiet click. He was a shark, and he knew exactly what a sinking ship looked like. Detective Hayes stood up slowly, a grim victorious smile playing on her lips. Subjective video, Mr. Sterling, severe paranoia? Your client just explicitly confessed to premeditated attempted murder on a crystal-clear audio tape. He established a financial motive, the physical method, and the lethal intent. Sterling didn't say a single word. He didn't try to argue. He just nodded tightly, turned around on his expensive heels, and walked straight out of the trauma bay, completely abandoning my family to their inevitable fate. Hayes unclipped the heavy steel handcuffs from her duty belt. They clinked together with a sound that felt like absolute freedom. Hang tight, Ethan. The storm is about to hit the hallway. Update 2. I thought the audio recording was the ultimate weapon that would end this nightmare. I was incredibly wrong. The real bomb was about to be dropped, and it was coming from the one person my parents feared more than anyone else in the world. My parents were still sequestered in the windowless holding area near the cafeteria, blissfully oblivious to the catastrophic reality that Liam had just explicitly confessed to attempted murder on tape. They truly thought Arthur Sterling was currently bullying the detective into dropping the charges. They had absolutely no idea that a real, unyielding reckoning was rolling down the corridor. I heard the steady, rhythmic squeak of a heavy-duty hospital wheelchair cutting sharply through the sterile silence. Nurse Sarah pulled back the heavy blue privacy curtain just as the wheelchair rounded the corner. Sitting there, dressed in a standard-issue faded hospital gown but looking like an absolute untouchable queen commanding a throne, was Grandma Eleanor. Despite her recent open-heart surgery, her spine was straight as an iron rod. Her silver hair was neatly pinned back, and her sharp blue eyes blazed with a cold, meticulously calculated fury. She was flanked on her left by Dr. Aris and on her right by a tall, incredibly imposing man in a tailored charcoal suit, clutching a massive thick black leather binder. Ethan, Grandma Eleanor said, her voice slightly raspy but carrying an undeniable heavy weight. She looked at my heavily bandaged chest and shattered arm. A brief, incredibly painful flicker of profound sorrow crossed her eyes, instantly replaced by absolute terrifying resolve. I specifically told you I would protect you. I am so profoundly sorry it came to this brutal escalation. Before I could respond, the heavy double doors burst open. My parents, having arrogantly convinced a young security guard they had a right to exit the holding area, marched aggressively down the corridor toward my bay. Liam was hiding in their shadow, still wearing that untouchable smirk, completely oblivious to the legal nuclear bomb that had just dropped. Ethan, this ridiculous farce has gone on long enough. My father boomed, his expensive shoes clicking aggressively. He didn't even notice Grandma Eleanor yet. We just tried calling Sterling's cell and his secretary said he had an emergency. Whatever lies you told him, it doesn't matter. We are leaving, and you are going to call the DA tomorrow and retract your statement, or I will see to it that you never get a decent job in this city again. Are you quite finished humiliating yourself, Richard? The voice cracked through the chaotic hallway like a physical leather whip. My father froze mid-step, his arrogant posture instantly deflating. He slowly turned his head, his eyes widening in absolute, unadulterated horror as he finally saw his mother sitting in the wheelchair, blocking the entrance to my bay like an impenetrable fortress. Mother, my father stammered, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. What are you doing down here? Your heart condition. My heart is perfectly functionally fine, Richard. It is my soul that is sick to its stomach looking at you right now, Grandma Eleanor stated, her voice echoing powerfully. The entire emergency room became a captive audience to the spectacular destruction of my family's toxic empire. My mother desperately plastered on a fake, incredibly strained smile. Eleanor, please, darling. Ethan just had a very clumsy, unfortunate fall on the stairs. Liam bravely tried to catch him. It is just a private family matter. We are handling it. Grandma Eleanor looked at my mother with such intense, unfiltered disgust that my mother physically flinched. A private family matter, Eleanor repeated dangerously. You stand there covered in expensive diamond jewelry paid for entirely by my late husband's company, and you explicitly lie directly to my face? You think I don't know exactly what you three disgusting parasites have been doing behind my back? Liam scoffed loudly, crossing his arms. Grandma, calm down. Ethan is just playing the pathetic victim again to manipulate you into giving him more money. He is completely crazy. Grandma Eleanor didn't yell at Liam, she simply raised her frail hand and snapped her fingers loudly. The tall man in the charcoal suit immediately stepped forward and opened his massive black leather binder. Richard, Susan, Liam, Eleanor said, her tone shifting to that of a ruthless corporate executive conducting a hostile takeover. I would like to formally introduce you to Mr. Caldwell. He is a senior forensic accountant and a former federal prosecutor. I quietly hired his private investigative firm exactly 10 months ago. The remaining color completely vanished from my parents' faces. They looked like they were staring directly at a firing squad. 10 months ago? My father whispered, trembling violently. Yes, Richard, Eleanor confirmed coldly. Right around the time I noticed Ethan constantly showing up to my house to cook my meals while sporting unexplained bruises and a perpetual look of absolute terror in his eyes. right around the time Liam suddenly started taking first-class luxury vacations while claiming he was completely broke. I am not blind, Richard. I had no idea the terrifying depths of your absolute moral bankruptcy until Mr. Caldwell brought me his weekly reports. Mr. Caldwell adjusted his glasses and began to read directly from the binder in a loud, authoritative voice. Over the past 10 continuous months, our firm has fully documented 3 separate instances of Liam intentionally destroying Ethan's personal property. Furthermore, we have successfully subpoenaed restricted bank records proving that Richard and Susan actively drained a federally protected college fund set up by Eleanor for Ethan to fund Liam's lavish destination wedding. Finally, we have obtained private timestamp security footage from the grocery store, the country club, and this very hospital's parking garage. This footage explicitly shows Liam intentionally causing severe physical harm to Ethan on 4 separate occasions, with both Richard and Susan physically present, actively concealing the crimes. My mother's legs gave out entirely. She let out a pathetic gasp and literally collapsed heavily against the cold hallway wall, sliding down to the linoleum floor, clutching her chest. "Mother, please, I am begging you," my father pleaded, genuine tears welling in his eyes, not out of guilt for what he had done to me, but out of sheer terror for his bank accounts. "We were just trying to protect Liam. A police investigation would ruin his life. You can't do this to your own blood. You made your ultimate choice about family and blood when you stood there and watched Ethan bleed on that concrete, and then aggressively told him to shut his mouth to protect a violent criminal." Eleanor fired back, shaking with righteous rage. "You thought you could just wait patiently for me to die, bully Ethan into giving up his inheritance, and walk away with my real estate empire." She turned to Mr. Caldwell. "Give them the final documents." Mr. Caldwell pulled out 3 thick manila envelopes and methodically handed one to my father, one to my weeping mother, and one to a paralyzed Liam. "What is this?" Liam demanded, his hands shaking as he ripped open the envelope, pulling out a massive stack of heavily notarized legal papers. "That," Grandma Eleanor said, a cold, incredibly satisfying smile spreading across her face, "is your brand new permanent reality." As of 9 this morning, my team of attorneys officially finalized the paperwork. My entire estate, all the historic properties, the massive stock portfolio, the corporate holding company, and every last dime I possess have been permanently and legally transferred into an irrevocable trust. The sole exclusive beneficiary and executive of that trust is Ethan. My father physically dropped the heavy envelope. The papers scattered chaotically across the floor. An irrevocable trust meant it could absolutely never be changed, never be contested, and never be touched by a probate court. The money was completely locked away behind an impenetrable legal wall. Furthermore, I have officially legally severed all financial and corporate ties with you, Richard, Eleanor continued with devastating finality. The beautiful suburban mansion you currently live in is entirely owned by my holding company. I just signed the eviction notice. You have exactly 30 days to completely vacate the premises. Your exorbitant monthly allowance is permanently terminated. Your corporate credit cards are cancelled. Your position on my board of directors is dissolved. You are completely, utterly, and legally cut off. Liam stared blankly at the dense legal documents. The devastating realization that he was suddenly entirely penniless, utterly homeless, and facing severe felony charges hit his privileged brain like a runaway freight train. "You can't do this to me," Liam screamed, crumpling the papers and lunging aggressively toward Grandma's wheelchair. "That money is mine. I am the firstborn grandson. I will sue you for everything you have." Before he could close half the distance, Detective Hayes stepped smoothly out from the shadows, flanked tightly by 2 massive, fully uniformed police officers. "Liam," Detective Hayes said, her voice cutting sharply through his hysterical tantrum. "Turn around immediately and place your hands firmly behind your back." Liam froze entirely in his tracks. He looked frantically at the heavily armed officers, then whipped his head around to look at my parents. "Mom, Dad, do something. Call Sterling. Tell them it's a huge mistake. I didn't do anything wrong." "Arthur Sterling formally and legally withdrew as your legal counsel exactly 15 minutes ago," Hayes stated bluntly, forcefully spinning Liam around. "He heard the high-definition audio recording of you actively planning to brutally murder your brother on the stairwell. He doesn't represent massive liabilities who confess on tape." "Audio recording?" my mother whispered, sounding completely hollow. "What audio recording?" Detective Hayes looked right through my mother with chilling disdain. "Stairwell C has high-definition audio recording. We have your precious son on tape exactly 10 minutes before the violent assault detailing his explicit plan to push Ethan down the concrete stairs in order to severely injure him and force him to forfeit his inheritance. It is a textbook airtight confession to premeditated attempted murder." My father stumbled backward as if he had been physically punched in the gut. He looked at Liam, who was now weeping hysterically, large ugly tears streaming down his face as the officers aggressively kicked his legs apart. The absolute golden child, the untouchable prince of the family, was sobbing uncontrollably like a broken, terrified child. "Mom, please. Dad. Liam wailed loudly, struggling pathetically as the cold steel handcuffs clicked violently around his wrists. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it. I just wanted to scare him. You have to help me. My mother scrambled to her feet and took a frantic step toward him, but my father abruptly grabbed her arm, yanking her back so violently she almost fell over. Survival instinct, raw and incredibly selfish, had finally kicked in. Richard realized that associating with Liam meant going down with the sinking ship. Richard, let me go, they are taking our boy. My mother cried. Shut your mouth, Susan. My father hissed vehemently, his voice trembling with a coward's absolute panic. Do you not understand what is happening? He is on a police tape explicitly planning a murder. If we say a single word to defend him, they will charge us as active accessories. We have to distance ourselves from him right this second to save ourselves. I watched this horrific display from my hospital bed. The very second the protective bubble of immense money popped, they turned on each other like starving rabid wolves. My father was perfectly willing to throw his beloved son directly to the wolves to save his own skin. As the officers dragged Liam down the long hallway, he stopped struggling for a fraction of a second and locked his terrified eyes directly with mine. In his wide, panicked eyes, I saw nothing but raw, unadulterated terror. He opened his mouth to say something, but I simply didn't care to hear it. I slowly reached up with my good hand, grabbed the edge of the blue privacy curtain, and pulled it completely shut with a sharp swish, cutting him off from my view forever. 6 months later, the legal and financial fallout was utterly brutal and entirely merciless. Liam, entirely stripped of his protective golden armor and facing a ruthless district attorney armed with a crystal-clear audio confession, completely crumbled. Without my father's deep pockets to hire a shark, Liam was assigned an overworked public defender who bluntly told him to beg for a plea deal. Liam pleaded guilty to felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the concrete stairs, and premeditated intent to cause grievous bodily harm. He was sentenced to a mandatory minimum of 5 solid years in a maximum security state penitentiary, followed by 5 years of strict probation. I didn't bother going to his sentencing hearing. As for my parents, Grandma Eleanor absolutely did not bluff. She aggressively evicted them from the beautiful, sprawling 5-bedroom suburban mansion they had lived in for 20 years. With his massive monthly allowance permanently severed and his highly lucrative position terminated, my father found himself shockingly unemployable in his sector. His reputation in our city's tight-knit corporate community was completely radioactive after the elder abuse allegations heavily leaked to the local press. To avoid absolute catastrophic bankruptcy, my parents were forced to drastically downsize. They frantically sold their luxury cars, auctioned off my mother's diamond jewelry, and moved into a cramped, highly depressing 2-bedroom apartment on the loud side of the city. I completely ignored every single one of their desperate emails begging for reconciliation. I was physically healed, living comfortably in Grandma Eleanor's historic home, and learning to manage the massive real estate holding company under Mr. Caldwell's guidance. I had successfully convinced Eleanor to allocate a massive portion of the liquid assets to fully fund a scholarship and housing program for young adults who were confirmed victims of domestic and financial abuse. I was turning my darkest trauma into a weapon of mass creation. But yesterday, a final twist arrived in the mail. It was a slightly crumpled white envelope, heavily stamped with official red ink from the maximum security state correctional facility. It was from Liam. I opened it carefully. The letter read, Ethan, I'm not writing this to ask for your forgiveness. Being locked in an 8x10 concrete cell for 23 hours a day breaks you down. I am writing this strictly because I owe you the absolute truth about how things escalated so violently. Yes, I was furious about the inheritance. But, I wasn't the only one whispering in your ear. And I wasn't the only one who wanted you gone. For 6 entire months before the incident on the stairs, our cousin Caleb was calling my cell phone almost every single day. He works at the downtown law firm as a paralegal and he illegally peeked at Grandma's highly confidential files. He was the one who kept aggressively telling me that you were planning to kick Mom and Dad out on the street the second Grandma died to punish us all. He kept saying, if Ethan just wasn't around, you'd get the entire estate, and then I could help you manage the portfolio to make us both rich. He wound me up like a cheap, stupid toy and pointed me directly at you. He desperately wanted us to violently destroy each other so he could easily swoop in as the supportive nephew and manipulate Grandma into giving him control of the trust. I pulled the trigger on that stairwell, and I ruined my own life, but you need to watch your back. Caleb is an absolute snake in the grass, and he is still out there playing the good guy, waiting for an opening. Stay safe, Liam. Cousin Caleb. The quiet, seemingly supportive, entirely forgettable cousin who had immediately texted me when I was lying in the hospital bed offering his deepest condolences. He had been the completely invisible, malicious puppet master the entire time, constantly stoking Liam's profound narcissism and endless greed, hoping to orchestrate a fatal collision so he could quietly collect the highly lucrative debris. A year ago, this revelation would have sent me into a blind, terrifying panic. I would have felt completely overwhelmed by the inescapable toxicity of my extended bloodline. But sitting inside a historic house I legally owned, backed by an ironclad legal trust and a team of ruthless, incredibly expensive lawyers, I didn't feel a single ounce of fear. I just felt a profound, overwhelming pity for every single one of them. They were all playing a vicious, miserable, zero-sum game of chess, entirely destroying their own pathetic lives for money they didn't even earn. I didn't want to play their stupid game anymore. Without a single word of hesitation, I walked over to the grand stone fireplace, where a small fire was crackling pleasantly, and tossed Liam's letter directly into the hottest part of the orange flames. Let Caleb live with his pathetic failed schemes. Let him wonder why he never got a dime. If he ever tries to come anywhere near us, Mr. Caldwell can absolutely deal with him. I am not going to spend another single second of my beautiful life endlessly chasing the toxic ghosts of a family that never truly loved me. Sometimes hitting absolute rock bottom on a cold, unforgiving concrete landing is the only possible way to realize you finally have a solid foundation to stand up on. You cannot ever heal in the exact same toxic environment that originally made you sick. I am Ethan. I am 25 years old, I successfully survived my family, and for the very first time in my entire life, I am exactly where I belong.